Hello, welcome. I'm Jennifer Keller, the program coordinator with the Westport Library. And today we have a really special event. It is the library's first cocktail cookbook event that we've had. And I, for one, am really happy to be here with Julia Halina Hadas, author of WitchCraft Cocktails. I can't think of a better way to start a weekend, especially one with a full moon, frankly. Anyway, so Julia will be discussing mixology, witchcraft, and demonstrating a few tasty concoctions this evening. These recipes can all be found in her book, which is available for purchase either through the link at the bottom of your screen or your favorite retailer. Please note that if you choose to purchase the book through the link here, you will receive an email with information for picking up your book plate signed copy at the Westport Library. We'll be sending this out in about a week, and book sales will close after this event. We still have some available, but we do ask that you pick them up at the library. You can ask Julia questions at any time during this talk through the Ask a Question tab at the bottom of your screen. I would point again, but that seems kind of silly. And of course, I want to acknowledge our fabulous partners for this event, the Wakeman Town Farm. So, enough of me. Julia Halina Hadas is a practicing witch and craft cocktail fanatic. She has worked at a distillery and as a craft cocktail bartender. She is also a certified crystal healer, shamanic, and Reiki practitioner. And you can learn more about her from her blog, witchcraftcocktails.com, or her website, firelotuscreations.com. So, without further ado, because I do not know anything about mixing alcohol, I'm just going to let Julia take it over.
Okay, hello everyone. I am so excited to show you how to make some cocktails and especially some magical cocktails. I can't think of a better way to drink. And thank you so much to the Westport Library and the Wakeman Town Farm for reaching out and making this happen. This is so exciting, and I'm sure you guys will be able to tell I can talk forever about witchcraft and craft cocktails, two of my favorite things. So thank you for providing me with this opportunity. So to start, I am going to show you guys how to make 3 cocktails from my book. We're going to go over the Mercurial grounding elixir, a nice cocktail for Mercury retrograde, especially that's coming up upon us soon. Nice, clear and relaxing cocktail. We have the Barley Moon Shandy, which is great for those harvest flavors to celebrate abundance and prosperity. And then we also have the Prosperous pumpkin cocktail, which is a fall essential because pumpkin is the ingredient of the season. So I'm so excited to show you that. And then we're also going to do one syrup, a lavender chamomile syrup that who doesn't love lavender and chamomile? So this is a wonderful syrup to put into any cocktail. Now, to kind of preface everything a little bit, I wanted to explain how I came about writing this book. So as mentioned, this kind of came about from me being a craft cocktail bartender, especially in the Bay Area, San Francisco area. We have so many fresh ingredients. I worked in a distillery for a while, and then also being a practicing witch. So when I first entered the craft cocktail world, you can see all of these, fresh ingredients. Bar managers would go out to farmers markets and take unique ingredients like celery or other kind of unique in season elements and turn those into things like celery bitters or shrubs, really unique syrups. And then all of these craft distilleries popped up making these really unique liqueurs and liquors. And so as the craft cocktail movement within the last 10 or more so years really kind of popped, when I entered the bartending scene, it just made sense to me. If we're making cocktails with things like lavender bitters, well, lavender is used in magic for specific things. And so I worked in a metaphysical witchy store for a number of years, and we would put together these different herb mixes that people would use for things like prosperity, patchouli is a great one for prosperity. And in incenses, and even just aromatherapy, right? People will create these blends of these different scents that are really good to bring in specific energies magically, or even if you're into just scents, will help relax and calm the mind. And so when I entered the craft cocktail scene, I'm like, well, if we're already throwing in, these really unique ingredients, why don't we make each ingredient aligned towards a specific energy and create a really unique cocktail potion that you can incorporate into ritual really easily? Or at the very least, if you're not into witchcraft stuff, which the preface is witchcraft here, but no worries, you have a cocktail that has a really unique story, because all of these ingredients like rosemary and lavender have traditional cultural uses that date back, years and years. And even alcohol itself is deeply intertwined with the practice of witchcraft and ritual and magic. In its founding, alcohol was often used in ritual and for abundance and manifestation. So it's just kind of natural. There's all these other wonderful books coming out around the subject now too. And so you guys are going to have lots of delicious magical cocktails in your life. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to start with our syrup. Now we're going to use this syrup in 2 of our cocktails. This is the lavender chamomile syrup. I'm going to show you really quick. Oh, well, this is backwards, so showing you isn't going to help. So sorry. I forget that with the front-facing camera, everything shows up backwards. So we're going to do lavender chamomile syrup. We're going to use this in our Mercurial grounding elixir, as well as our Barley moon shandy. And I've just found this syrup is delicious in so many cocktails, as I've already said. So really easy to win with this one. Now, I know when people tend to think of syrups, they think it's a lot more complicated or nuanced than it needs to be. And if you do want to get fancy and do a syrup on a stove, do it that way. But being a bartender, a lot of the times you have to do things on the fly. And so it's actually really simple to make a syrup, and I'll just show you how to do that. So the lavender chamomile syrup is a variation, basically a simple syrup, and simple syrups have a ratio of 1:1 sugar to water. So for this, we're going to do a 1/2 cup of hot water and a 1/2 cup of sugar. Now I figured with the hot water aspect, why not turn the hot water part into a tea, let it steep for 5 minutes like a tea, and then just pour the sugar on top and stir. And now you have a really interesting syrup that's going to transform really any traditional cocktail that you might put it into. So it's not super complicated. I love to simplify things. And so I'll show you how easy that is to make. So first thing you're going to do is you're going to go ahead and grab a mason jar. What I tend to infuse the syrups in until I'm ready to strain and use them. You're going to set your hot water to boil. I've already boiled mine. And then we're going to take our first ingredient, which is about a tablespoon of dried lavender flowers. Now, lavender is associated with the planet Mercury. Mercury rules the signs Virgo and Gemini. So it has some of those astrological sign correlations. And lavender, as we all know, is a really calming and relaxing ingredient, but also it's associated with purification, love. It just helps the mind think more clearly. And I like to think of like magical energies as being more dual. So when we talk about something being calming, well, when you're calm, you're able to trust your instincts a little more, tune into your intuition a little more, right? You're able to release any negativity more easily. You're able to think better. So I like to look at magical energies as being multidimensional in that way. So always feel free to go beyond the lavender happiness, and you can go ahead and take that. And then we're going to add 1 tablespoon of dried chamomile flowers. Now, a little cheat sheet on that. When I first made the syrup the first few times, I just used a bag of chamomile tea. You can really just throw any tea bag and turn it into a syrup. Now, obviously for this, you're going to want to make sure that it's pure chamomile tea. I haven't tried it with any other flavors added in, so that would be an unknown. Chamomile is associated with the sun. It's really used oftentimes in witchcraft practices for money. It's really good for communication, and similar to lavender, it helps induce calm. So it's another great one for clear thinking, speaking clearly. And before we go ahead and pour our hot water over this, while we're waiting for it to boil, you can take a moment and tune into these ingredients. Now, if you're a less magically inclined person, just taking a moment to really breathe in the aromas, tuning into the energy, you know for a fact that these are two ingredients that do induce calm and peace of mind that will really put you at ease, which is what we want this cocktail to do, right? Because we want it to help counteract Mercury retrograde, help us think a little more clearly, be a little more grounded when we put this into our cocktail, our Mercurial mixture. So if you are more magically inclined, because I'm an energy worker, you can kind of take your bowl here, you can take a moment and put your hands over and just really bring your awareness to your hands, to your fingertips as over the herbs. Really contemplate the ingredients and all of their meanings and their years and years of use across various cultural groups and the energies it really represents. And sometimes you kind of feel like as you tune in, you feel a little buzzing. If you want, you can visualize whatever you want this syrup to be for. If you're doing a very specific magical work, you can take a moment and really visualize, okay, this is a peaceful syrup. So I'm going to tune into myself being nice and stress-free. And so when you feel like you've connected, you can go ahead and put it in your mason jar. And then we're going to do a half cup of hot water. Excuse me while I pour this.
While you're pouring, Julia, we have a question from the audience. Where do you typically find the ingredients like lavender and chamomile?
So like I said, the chamomile tea when I first started, the chamomile when I first started doing this, I just got chamomile tea bags, quite frankly. And then I eventually measured it out and figured out how much it was. I'm lucky that I have a place called Harvest House locally here in the Bay Area that has a lot of fresh ingredients. Lavender, I ordered a big bag of from Star West Botanicals. It arrived pretty quickly, but you can find things like this on Etsy, Amazon. These are pretty typical herbs, these two, so you should be able to find them. And if you can't, there are teas. There is a lavender chamomile tea probably at your local grocery store as well, and you can experiment with that.
Great, thank you.
That answers. Yeah, but Star West Botanicals is a great, if you don't want to order from Amazon, I've ordered from them. Etsy, people are harvesting from their own gardens, so that's a good one. So we're going to go ahead and pour our half cup of hot water over our herbs. Now, cups are very symbolic themselves because it kind of represents, if you think of like even the Holy Grail, the Tarot has lots of, this whole part of the deck is designated towards the symbolism of a cup. It represents blessings, kind of a container of what you allow into your life. And so whenever you're pouring and bartending, like this moment, right, this is like more of a peaceful mental clarity syrup, you can pour it over and just imagine your own energy filling up, more calm coming into your life. And then you have these beautiful aromas of this lavender and chamomile coming together. It smells so beautiful. You're going to let that steep for 5 minutes, just kind of like you would a tea. And then you're going to add in a half cup of sugar. So let me measure that out. This is a lot of information, so I apologize if I'm overwhelming you guys. But sugar is used in magic as well for sweetening people up, bringing energy to us, neutralizing negativity because it's a sweetener. So every part of these cocktails we're going to make down to the syrups is absolutely magical, and you can really tune into the symbolism or the historical uses and the journey that each of these ingredients is taken to get here in this place of time. So I'm going to go ahead and add in the sugar. Obviously, it's not been 5 minutes, so do as I say, not as I do, for the sake of this demo. You can just go ahead and stir, get that sugar mixed in there, and then you're going to let that cool, and you can store it in your refrigerator. Strain before use. It's good for 2 to 3 weeks. I would probably, max let the herbs in there for 24 hours because otherwise I forget after a day. But sometimes if you let them sit in the fridge for a while, they'll get an extra little cold infusion. But for something like the lavender chamomile syrup, I've tested both ways. Pretty much once you pour the hot water over it and let it steep That's the max flavor you're going to get from this one. Letting it infuse for an extra 24 hours doesn't add anything. So that one's pretty much ready to go once it's cool. So if we don't have any questions about the syrup, hopefully you can see you can take any herb you have in your kitchen. You can try even basil, cloves, things you normally cook with, and try turning those into a syrup. And it's just really simple. You can use kind of the tea method that I do, the steeping method, to make it more simpler and accessible for you, so you don't have to worry about prepping all of these things and needing mass amounts of time. So let's go ahead and make our first cocktail. Oops, I paired these wrong. Okay, so the first one, you guys should be able to see this photo. It's absolutely gorgeous. The Adams Media team put in these gorgeous photos for these cocktails, and just look, this is the Mercurial grounding elixir. Now, when I first made it, I called it the Mercurial mixture, and because it has this nice alliteration to it, I tend to call it that. So just know I'm referring to the Mercurial grounding elixir. This was originally a cocktail I made for a witchy event. That's actually how the lavender chamomile syrup came about. And part of it is, you know, these witchy events. There's actually the Pantheacon specifically, which is no longer happening. They've transformed it into something else to be more inclusive. But people are doing all kinds of magic, ritual, you know, tarot readings. There's so much energy. And so I wanted to do a cocktail that was more grounding. There's also Mercury retrograde happening at the time. So people tend to be like really disorganized and all over the place with all of these things happening. So since I was doing a little cocktail for some of these events, I wanted something that was associated with the planet Mercury, which rules, you know, communication, technology, how we think and speak. And Mercury also, like I said, rules the planet or the signs Virgo and Gemini. So it has those other layers of association in here. This cocktail uses that lavender chamomile syrup, uses mint. Mint, at the least, you should know, is a nice rejuvenating herb, right? But it's also really good for abundance, good for, you know, psychic abilities, just really bringing in that clear thinking. We have lemon, gin, and then tonic water, and I'll get into each of those as we pour them together. And all together, these ingredients create this really grounding cocktail. It's nice and cleansing, peace-inducing, brings a nice just peace of mind and helps you organize your thoughts a little bit better. Obviously, it depends on how much you drink of it. Now, I know a lot of people are like, gin. Really, I would try this with the gin first, because I've made this cocktail for a lot of people who didn't like gin, but they were surprised to find it didn't really taste like a gin cocktail to them. So give it a try, and then you're always welcome. How I designed the book is to show you what you can do. So if you don't like something, swap it out with something else. Sometimes I'll put in these fancy steaming syrups, and if you're not up for that, just switch it out. Or if you want to get another, you know, type of energy going, you can do that too. Because I just wanted to show people really the variety of what they can do. So always improvise. If you don't have something, you can switch it up and do as you please. Just use it as a guiding point. So give this a try with gin first, maybe. I would say about 9 out of 10 people ended up liking this drink who maybe didn't like gin typically. So give it a shot and then switch it out if you don't like it. This is kind of a Tom Collins variation a little bit. I've switched up some of the ingredients, as you'll see. And you can build or shake the cocktail. I'm going to build it today. If you're going to shake and strain it, I would wait to add the tonic water until after you've strained the cocktail. Sometimes shaking a cocktail, just get a better, you know, mix. The cocktail's a little more aerated and a little more water in there. So we're going to go ahead and take our glass, little highball glass, and then we're going to take our mint leaves. It says 5. So you're going to go ahead and take those and put them in the bottom of your glass. And then you're going to go ahead and take 3/4 ounce of your lavender chamomile syrup. Now in the book, they use measurements like tablespoons. I'm used to using a tool like this, which is a jigger, and it has the measurements on it of how much. So because I'm in the US, it uses ounces, but you know, this 3/4 ounce to tablespoons, you can use whatever you have at home to measure these out, but just know it's the same measurement. Gonna go ahead and pour that syrup in here. And then you're gonna take your muddler. Woo. So mint we talked about, planet Mercury helps, you know, mental abilities, clear thinking, abundance, divination, associations. And you're going to take your muddler and just press down. I don't know if you guys have seen Martha Stewart muddle. Someone sent me a video for her muddling, and she's just doing this nice little tapping. That's not how you muddle. You really want to get those oils of the leaf or the mint to mix with the syrup. So you're just going to press down and just do twist. It's not going to be a hard press, but press down and twist. And this is mixing the oils of the mint leaves with the syrup we've done. And muddling is also another magical visualization opportunity to just visualize yourself, you know, muddling down anything that's keeping you from your peace of mind. You can also use it as an opportunity to really tune in to the ingredients mixing together, their magical energies coming together in that moment. I really find that, like, you know, if you really are more of a visualization or kinesthetic person, that bartending offers, magical mixology offers a lot of opportunities to put in little magical snippets here and there to tune into what you're doing. Next, we're going to go ahead and add an ounce of our lemon juice. Lemon is associated with the moon. It's really good for purifying, for friendship. You think a lot of times we use lemon for you know, cleansing products, and part of that is because it's cleansing, but also it helps bring this upbeat positivity. So it's going to add a little bit of that joy element into our cocktail. Then we're going to do 1.5 ounces. I'm gonna have to remember to do this on screen for you guys because the camera is facing me and not my bar mat. Go ahead and take 1.5 ounces and pour it in. And next we're gonna add ice. I didn't bring my proper ice tool. I had some nice ice prepared, so I'm gonna have to run to the fridge and grab it really fast. So excuse me. And then we're going to add our 2 ounces of tonic water. I do find that tonic water versus soda water, store-bought tonic water, I should specify, better balances the cocktail than soda water. You can try it both ways. If you prefer soda water and that works for you, do that. And I'm just going to give this a little stir just to make sure everything's nicely mixed. And then we're going to add in our garnish. I love garnishes because they're the first thing that greet your nose as you're sipping. So it's really an opportunity to add extra magic, some little aromatherapy element to your cocktail. It really sets the preface for what you're about to drink. If you want, you can go ahead and sometimes you'll see people, like, you know, whack them in to get the oils to express themselves. If you're using basil, it's usually good to actually slap the leaf, as funny as that is to say. I'm going to stick that mint in there. It's a little sad piece of mint. Let me put in a better one. And then I'm also going to add a little lavender sprig. Now you have this little, I can get the camera to look down at this properly, this beautiful garnish, mint and lavender, what is not to love? And then you can go ahead and enjoy. Oh my God, I love this cocktail so much. I don't think I mentioned, but gin, the defining quality of gin is that it uses juniper in the creation process. And juniper is associated with the planet Jupiter. It's really good for grounding, purification. It's just a wonderful, one of those extremely magical ingredients. I mean, all ingredients are magical, but juniper especially, it has that grounding element, the psychic ability, portion of it as well. And that's why I put it in this cocktail, is because it's a really good ingredient to work with in cleansing magic and kind of grounding and helping you reattune yourself to your energies. That's a lovely, refreshing cocktail that you can use for that. And so that is the Mercurial Grounding Elixir. And I'm going to go ahead and switch over to our next cocktail, the Barley Moon Shandy. Oh, I got the pages wet. We'll just ignore that. But it's a beautiful, that's why you don't bartend over your books. That's whenever I'm doing my blog, the constant problem is I'm bringing down my papers that I'm like planning recipes with, and they're always getting wet. So Barley Moon Shandy. That is a beer cocktail. Now, I love beer cocktails. People feel a little weirded out by them, by the idea of it. But when you work with a beer cocktail properly, you can get some of the most unique cocktail expressions that you will never get without that beer topper in there. So I love beer cocktails for that reason. Obviously, if it's doesn't work out, it's gonna not be so great. But if it's a lovely beer cocktail, it's just the most magical thing. And so this is really just an unexpected kind of cocktail to show people who are more used to craft, pure alcohol cocktails, to show them that yes, beer cocktails are a thing, and there's lots of them out there. So you can look that up. And this is perfect for the harvest season. This also uses our lavender chamomile syrup that we've talked about. This is designed to celebrate the harvest season, so it has a lot of those aligned ingredients, which is going to be a little bit of bourbon, which we'll talk about, the Pilsner, lavender, especially around the harvest season, at least locally where I am, is in abundance. So it's perfectly in alignment with that. And with all of these ingredients together, we also have lemon. It creates this grounding, abundant cocktail, but also happens to be really cleansing and rejuvenating because we have that lemon and the lavender and chamomile. So for this one, you will need a cocktail shaker. So go ahead and grab that. Then we're going to pour out 3/4 ounce of our syrup and pour that in there. Going to measure out 3/4 ounce of lemon. And then we're going to do an ounce of bourbon. Now, why I chose bourbon, you can do whiskey. I love bourbon personally. It has to be made from a 52% corn mash. So we're going to do an ounce of that. And corn has a lot of associations kind of with ancestry, the growth cycles, and whiskey in general, because it uses grain. It has those associations of harvest, abundance, grounding. But what I love about grain-based drinks is grains, they hold the future, right? They're seeds for the future, and they're made from the past. And so there's really kind of unique kind of hope for the future segment in there that makes me want to use whiskey and bourbon typically for karmic cycles, things during life and death, obviously harvest season, but it's really got that symbolism for me that I love to use it for that reason. And then we're going to go ahead and add ice. So let me grab that ice. I get to show you guys how to shake, at least with a proper shaker. So you're going to go ahead and take this. I typically, bartending, we work from less expensive to more expensive ingredients, which is why we put alcohol in last. That way, if you fudge up the recipe, you haven't wasted expensive alcohol. You add your ice into this part. I tend to fill it up most of the way. And then we're going to go ahead and pour this in here. You're going to give it a little slap. You can already see kind of that condensation happening. I'm going to shake. I apologize if this is loud. I don't know if I can mute this for a second, but it's going to be right by my ears. So just be alarmed, or I'll try and hold it away. And you can see how much condensation we have on our shaker. A little quick trip, you can take, these tend to be stuck. It creates a vacuum when you shake it. And so you take the back of your hand, slap it, and it helps you open it. Go ahead and let that spill out. And then I don't have a proper beer glass with me. I apologize. I use a little wine glass because typically with, beer glasses or beer cocktails, you want the nose to be not as wide as the bottom because that controls the aroma as you experience as you sip. And you're going to go ahead and put on your shaker, or not your shaker, your hot form strainer. And then you're going to take your mesh and then you're just going to pour over. Now, well, maybe I can do that here. Will this work? Let's see. I don't know if you can see. I'm just going to go ahead and strain that. And now we have the base for our cocktail. And now we get to put the beer on top. So this uses a Pilsner beer. Again, got the grain harvest associations. Fun fact, beer is also used for purification. When I read that, I was like, okay. And there's actually beer spas where people will go and soak in tubs of beer. That's one way you can drink your cocktail and soak yourself in it too. I'm going to actually measure out the proper measurement of the Pilsner but obviously be careful as you're pouring because you don't want to get a lot of the bubbles right away and as it's in your jigger. So there's 3 ounces and then 4. Beautiful. And then we're going to take a little lemon wheel. Now I love the little wheel part because you can think of the wheel of life. You can think of the wheel of fortune if you're using this for abundance. I'm going to take my little lavender sprig and just kind of stick it in there. That way this sits. You can like dump this right on top of the cocktail. So it, maybe I can show you both ways because this isn't going to last very long. So you can put it on kind of the edge. Or sometimes you can like kind of create, this is a little childish of me, but you stick the little garnish in the middle and then you let it float on top and you have just this little, it's kind of like a little ship. You can't see. Let me bend the camera down so you can take a look there. And then you have your Barley Moon Shandy. Go ahead and sip that.
I don't know about anybody else who's watching, but I'm suddenly very thirsty, Julia.
Good. I'm doing my job right.
Excellent.
I love it. Another thing is I have another wonderful beer cocktail on my blog that I did for August 1st for Lunasa. So if you're interested in that, it has ginger and it's lovely. I'm going to wash my hands. You're going to hear the water for a second. So pardon me. And so ways you can kind of use these cocktails is you can use them as little potions themselves if you do it really intentionally. And in the book, I pair them with like a card or a crystal. My publisher had to tell me to pull back a little bit because I was like, oh, I can do a card, a crystal, a planet, a moon, for each cocktail. So we just chose one aligned magical element for each cocktail. And it can help you tune into the specific energy and show you how you can do it. You can oftentimes turn these into like baths. So like this uses lavender and chamomile, right? You can put a little bit of lemon essential oils into some bath salts with lavender and chamomile flowers and throw that into your bath. And now you're sipping this cocktail as well. So it's a nice little magical calming ritual. Now the last cocktail we're gonna do, I don't know if we end up having time because I talk a while, but if we do, I can show you guys how to turn any cocktail into a mocktail. It's really simple unless it's pure alcohol. You just vary the ratios of acid or the citrus to the syrup. Obviously, remove the alcohol. Look at this gorgeous photo. This is the Prosperous pumpkin. Absolutely beautiful. This photographer is amazing. Take my shaker. So Prosperous pumpkin, right? We have officially entered October, right? Where everyone has their pumpkins out and about. Had to do a pumpkin spice cocktail of some kind. This was obviously different from what I used to make, but this is kind of born from, I used to do like a pumpkin spice little shooter when people would come over to my house when I was a manager at a restaurant. And I used to use spiced gin from St. George. They had this like wonderful spiced gin there, but I realized it's not available across the globe or across the US. So I switched it to bourbon, and it actually creates, you know, this totally different cocktail, and the other ingredients are switched around to match this. This is a dessert cocktail that uses pumpkin puree, maple. We're going to do half and half, cinnamon, nutmeg, bourbon, and then a little bit of whipped cream on top. And all of these together, the general energy is abundance. We have a lot of feminine energy associations, or what I should say is labeled as feminine energy, but you know, energy is energy. And it kind of represents the earth's bounty, so abundance, prosperity, healing, and especially pumpkin when it's combined with nutmeg and cinnamon is especially great for bringing money. So I know all of us with the COVID situation right now, if you want to bring in some extra bucks, try mixing pumpkin, cinnamon, and nutmeg together. Besides being a delicious combo, you can do a little bit of money magic that way. So first thing we're going to do is we are going to take a tablespoon, where is my measurement here? There we go, of our pumpkin puree. Now, this is, you know, I'll show you. Well, this is backwards. I always forget that. This is organic pumpkin, pure pumpkin, okay? You're gonna take a tablespoon of that and put that into your shaker. This is a shaken cocktail. We're going to do 3/4. You can do a little bit less. It's 3/4 of an ounce of maple syrup, but if you don't want as much maple in there, just a hint. I'm actually gonna do a half ounce right now, and I can add in more after. Always start with less sugar, and then you can add more if you're not sure, but pure maple, go ahead and pour that in. We're gonna do a half ounce of half and half. Oh, I forgot to mention, so pumpkin, associated with the moon, the element of earth, healing, money, abundance, as we talked about, really associated with a lot of goddess worship as well. Then we have maple. Maple is associated with Jupiter, so it brings in luck, longevity, money, yes, love and money. So really wonderful to use for this association as well. And then half and half. Now milk is used, we're doing a half ounce again. It's attached to a long history of, again, feminine, what would be labeled as feminine or goddess worship. It's also associated with, you know, beauty and the moon. So it's a wonderful addition here for spirituality. Then we're going to go ahead and add in 1/8 teaspoon of cinnamon.
While you're measuring, can I ask you another question?
Yeah.
Okay, instead of half and half, would full cream or a non-dairy beverage be usable?
I think so. I mean, if you want, if we have time after, I mean, I don't know how we're going. I have some almond milk I can try throwing in. You definitely switch it up. Part of the milk part is to loosen up the pumpkin and give it a nice, more creamy texture. So definitely experiment with other types of non-dairy variations on the half and half. So definitely feel free to do that. I think it would work just fine. You know, it just adds more of the texture and the energy, and you can switch it up easily.
Thanks.
Now, cinnamon. Oh yeah, perfect. Anything else before I get carried away in my
No, keep going.
here?
I want to know what this drink ends like.
I know, I'm so okay. I'm just gonna show you guys. I've got this beautiful glass that I'm gonna put this one in, right? Look at that gold swirl. I'm so excited. So cinnamon that I just put in, 1/8 teaspoon, is used a lot of times in manifestation, fast luck. It brings in money, abundance. It's a go-to for people to kind of manifest things very quickly and bring in good luck and abundance. So we're adding that in. We're doing, you know, cinnamon, you think of spice, right? A little bit of zest, love, lust. We're doing 1/8 teaspoon nutmeg. In the recipe ingredients, it lists 1/4. That's because you're going to use another 1/8 to top on the whipped cream. So you're only putting 1/8 teaspoon into the actual cocktail shaker. Nutmeg is used a lot in money and abundance magic as well. It's associated with luck, good health, and the planet Jupiter. We're going to add in 1.5 ounces of our bourbon. You can use whiskey. You can try using some other types of alcohols if you like. The bourbon, as we talked about, abundance, grounding, wisdom. And then I'm just going to add some ice. So you're going to hear my little ice maker again.
Just a reminder, if you have any questions, you can type them into the Ask a Question tab at the bottom of your screen, and I'll read them out to Julia.
Yes, because I'm not watching the chat. I'm so distracted by all these yummy drinks. So you're going to go ahead again, add some ice. You can see I put it a little bit just below the line of the bottom half of my shaker. I'm going to pour that in. And I wanted to mention shaking is another magical opportunity, especially if you're doing a cocktail, to get rid of negativity. You can just get all your frustration out while shaking it. So I'm going to go ahead and shake this cocktail. I hope that's not too loud for you guys. I apologize. I tend to shake right here. And I'm like, oh, everyone's going to hear this loud ice. It's going to make everyone have trouble. So again, take the back of your hand. You can see the condensation here. Hit the side. You can see how the top just jumped. Now let's see how we can, is this going to show up here? Hopefully this doesn't mess anything up. You can see this glass needs to be polished, so I apologize for that, but just pretend that there are no markings on it whatsoever. I'm just double straining that. And the strainer just gave up on me, so let me help it out a little bit. Okay, give me a second. This isn't. Whew. Last time I did this, it just went right through. And then we're going to go ahead and add our whipped cream. Just clean up the glass so it looks nice and presentable. Just going to go ahead and take it, and you're just going to pour a little bit in there. Well, that's not a little bit, but I liked whipped cream. And then you're going to go ahead and take 1/8 teaspoon again of nutmeg. If you actually have a full nutmeg, a wonderful magical opportunity is to really grind the nutmeg on top, and you can just imagine that abundance kind of raining down on you like it's raining on the cocktail. But you can still do with this little, and just drizzle a little bit on there. You can do a little bit less than 1/8 teaspoon. That might have been a bit overkill. I don't know if you can see this lighting. You have this delicious, I like this one.
It does look rather magical.
This one's gold. Bringing in that money.
Oh my gosh, Julia, I'm so jealous, and I'm so sad that you're on the other side of the country right now. I have a question for you. When you were creating these drinks, were you creating them because of the flavors that you wanted, or because of the magic that they would impart? So how did you approach creating these recipes?
So honestly, I approached it kind of from every angle. Originally, they wanted 150 recipes, and I was like, well, I can't do that in the time that I have. So a lot of the cocktails I do, like if I do a cocktail on my blog for the full moon, I'm looking at the energies of the moon and the astrological sign. And then I'm also contemplating the energy of that particular full moon, because not all the ingredients might align with that astrological energy at that time. And then I play around with flavor and different liqueurs and liquors. Some of them I start with, oh, I want this ingredient in here. And then I kind of look at the magic of that ingredient. So there's some new syrups I'm going to be working with for a podcast. They wanted me to try these other syrups from a company. And I was like, okay, well, maple is associated with this. So I'm going to stick it, in a cocktail like this. And again, other times I'm more of the energies. How can I use bourbon in this kind of cocktail? So I do approach it from various angles, and I have correspondence books that are in the bibliography that help guide me with creating, these different libations. Hopefully that answers.
It does. And just one more question, because I know how to cook and meld flavors when I'm cooking something, but how many times does it take generally to find which balance of ingredients makes a decent cocktail? And do you just keep drinking until you find it? Because again, I will volunteer.
That's the thing. So it's a little bit again of a mix. So typically the best way to create your own cocktail is you take a standard cocktail. There's a wonderful bar book that has so many recipes in it. I think it's called the Bartender Bible, that sometimes I use every so often, not all the time. And you can look up all of these different ingredients, and these are established cocktails, established ratios. So what you can do is you can switch it out. So like, I'm not feeling lemon, I want to do lime. I want to try different alcohol. I want to try different syrup. And then as you're making it, you add a little bit. When I'm making a cocktail, although sometimes I do this, sometimes I don't. I try and half it. So typically a given cocktail, the base liquor, if it's like gin, bourbon, tequila, whatever it may be, is 1.5 ounces. So when I'm testing recipes, I'll try and do half it. So I'll do 3/4 ounce. And I don't drink the whole thing. I just take a little sip and I'm like, this is okay, but not great, and then you can add to it or retry again. So yeah, it's a little bit of and I actually tend to, especially when I'm making mass amounts of cocktails of time, I store them in mason jars and just put them, strain them, put them in mason jars, depending on the cocktail, leave it in my fridge, and I have a cocktail I can drink over the next few days. Obviously not as fresh, but that way it doesn't go to waste. Or magic or ritual, you can give alcohol as offerings to deities. So there's a lot of ways you can do it, but you do go through a lot of ingredients, especially in this book that I didn't have access to a bar at this time. I had to buy a lot of alcohol. You should see my alcohol collection. Too bad I can't show you guys. There's a lot.
So Teresa asks, what is your favorite bourbon?
Ooh, it used to be Bullet, but not anymore. Working in a distillery jaded me towards a lot of alcohol companies. And I'm not going to say anything particular. Bullet doesn't have anything particularly bad about it, but I learned some types of alcohols. Basically, a bunch of companies buy the base alcohol and just throw it into age it into different barrels, because bourbon's going to be aged in a wooden barrel. So what's my new Bullet bourbon? Used to be my favorite. I can't remember the name of it right now. It doesn't gonna bother me. Which one did I just recently like? I'm sorry.
If you come up with it later, then you can email it to me and I'll email it out to the group. So hopefully
Yes,
Teresa
okay,
can
perfect.
wait for us.
Especially because like now that I'm making all these cocktails, I can't afford a high-end bourbon when you're just making a bunch of recipes, or else I would be in deep, every time I make a cocktail. So I haven't really bought a nice bourbon in a while, but you can always get the sample sizes we have at BevMo.
Oh, great. So I have another
Total
question.
Wine, or whatever you guys have.
All of it. We have all of it. So I have another question here, which is, how do you think about matching cocktails with food?
Oh, definitely. I mean, it's just kind of like wine. There's going to be flavors that aren't going to go as well together, right? Just like if you're having a heavier meal, you probably, I mean, dissimilar to wine, because usually if you're going to have meat, you're going to have red wine. You may, want to go lighter if you have too many ingredients in a cocktail and too many ingredients in your food, your stomach can get upset. So I do think definitely matching, and even if you're doing a whole magical meal, you know, especially for a day like Lunasa or one of the equinoxes or solstices, you can match definitely to ingredients to food, cocktails to food.
Okay, that's actually a pretty good way of doing it. But I'm trying to figure out what the Prosperous pumpkin would be paired with if there's a food pairing with that one. Or do you just drink it on your own?
It's a dessert cocktail, so it kind of is just like a nice dessert in itself. I have a sweet tooth, you know, and so if I add a little more sugar to this, like this, I wouldn't necessarily pair it with, although maybe like apple pie, since we're getting into the season or something like that. The nice spices of apple pie would probably taste really good with this, or yeah. But it's dessert in itself, really. It got the whipped cream.
Okay, so unless the audience has any more questions, we just have one more question, which is, during this pandemic, is there something magical that we should be drinking more of to keep us healthy and balanced? And is that maybe on your website, that recipe on your website? Because I feel like we're all looking for something to keep us going through this difficult time.
I would really suggest the Mercurial mixture, and especially because you can turn that into a mocktail really easily. Mocktail is a non-alcoholic cocktail. It escaped me that some people didn't know it until someone started asking me. And I was like, oh, mocktail is a non-alcoholic cocktail. And what you would do is you would change so it has a little more sugar than it does the citrus, the lemon juice in that cocktail, and maybe a little bit more soda water. But I would go with that one because it's really clear thinking. You've got the lavender chamomile syrup. You can even take lavender chamomile syrup and throw that into an iced tea. And that's just going to be a peaceful drink, like maybe some green tea and throw that in there. So that's probably, I would stick with the lavender chamomile syrup or the Mercurial grounding elixir. But I do have a lot of cocktails on my blog. There's one I love that is Luscious Leo. And it's just one of those, like, when you drink these cocktails, they make you feel a certain way. They're each very different, especially because they're specifically aligned. And so Luscious Leo, like, I gave it to other people to try, and they're like, wow, I do feel really luscious. So if you do want to check out the blog, there are some alignments to that towards the energy you might want to feel.
So as a Leo, should I be drinking that one all the time then?
You're a Leo?
Yeah.
I'm a Leo too. There's another cocktail in this book that's designed towards Leo. But yeah, I actually made the Luscious Leo for a group of 3 Leo women. And they loved it because it was COVID, so I couldn't really, do a big thing. So I had them taste it. So if you want to, yes, but it does have a raspberry lavender syrup some ingredients might be a little more complicated. Yes, if you want to feel luscious as a Capricorn, go for it. Anyone who wants to feel luscious like a Leo.
I feel like everybody should be luscious these days. So, oh my gosh.
Carefree, happy.
Absolutely. Well, I want to thank you so much, Julia. And when you can travel again, please do consider coming to Connecticut and hanging out with us. We'll find a bar for you to take over when you come. So for those of you at home, there's still some time to order a book plate signed copy of WitchCraft Cocktails through the link at the bottom of your page. Remember that you will be picking it up at the Westport Library if you choose to purchase it this way. Of course, you can also borrow the book from the library, although I think that maybe some of us might be taking it out soon. And remember to check out the websites for both the Westport Library and Wakeman Town Farm for more upcoming delicious programs. Thank you all so very much for coming. And Julia, thank you for sharing your expertise with us today.
Yeah, thank you, you guys. Thank you so much. This was a lot of fun.